Hello again. Elliot here from the Goldworks. You might remember this one. Customer approved it. We ended up switching the center to an Asher cut, which they wanted to take a look at. Totally cool. What I'm going to show you today is how I would prepare this to 3D print. I've got a Solidscape printer, so I'm very fortunate. I don't need to sweat um, the supports as much. Technically, I don't really need any supports, but I am going to put the casting support, the sprue base in to save me some time. So first thing, dragged from off screen, I've got a file that has all my stamps kind of pre-made and ready to go. And I can come in here and import it and then deselect what I want to use and delete the rest. It's got a nice tapered sprue base here. And then it's got carrots, the carat of gold and my trade stamp that I use all the time in this funny kind of elongated thing. And here is how I use this. First thing I like to do, go into the job bag, get my eyeballs on where I wrote the finger size. Don't trust my original finger size, even though it's probably right. Just don't trust it. Double check yourself at this point in time. You know, this stage where you're prepping it to grow, in my opinion, this is kind of the most important part. This is where you really slow down, take your time, double check everything. Because, if you make the settings too small, if you screw something up, basically this is going to be your piece. Don't be friends with your setter. You want your stone setter to like you, and um, don't make their life difficult. So this is communication with your stone setter is a huge um, that's a huge factor if you're going to be successful or not. You're working as a team. Follow their instructions. So everything I'm doing here is dictated how far I sink it into the claw, um, how tall I make the claw over the stone, how I cut the seat, all of that. That's all been slowly over time, experimenting, playing around, and getting input from my stone setter, which happens to be my sister-in-law, and she is an incredible stone setter. She's an incredible goldsmith. She's just awesome. And, we've really tweaked our systems. And what you're seeing here is what um, is part of that. Here's another thing. I know I rendered it to the customer in a certain way, certain proportion. Don't be afraid to make changes. The rendering, when you render, pardon me, sorry, when you render something, you're trying to not make it look too big in the computer. You're trying to give a sense of scale, and it's tricky. Um, and when you're prepping something to 3D print, you have to compensate for all the sanding and polishing and all that stuff. So you'll notice here I beefed up the claws. I'm gonna make these. I'm gonna just scale these up a little bit more. Um, and make the shank a little bit wider. Those are just, that small amount that I tweaked that. That's basically, a few swipes of the sandpaper, and that's the difference. So it'll go right back to where the 3D model was in the first place. I like this shape of claw where it's flat on the inside. It's a little bit easier to cut into. The perfectly round claw maybe looks a little bit better in the renders, I guess, but I use this for a lot, this flat edged claw. I don't know what that percentage is. That's about how much I sink the stone into the claw, especially on smaller stones. A little bit more on bigger stones. You can come in here to your ring dome, take that cap off, um, or you can just probably just as easily and just as quickly just draw a little line Oops, ungroup. Did I say quickly? In theory, I'm just showing you a different way. Split, cap, and then that way when you go to build another claw, that slider will be where you want it. Here's another factor when you're prepping stuff to 3D print. It's hard to get into the nooks and crannies of a ring, so don't be shy to cast in multiple pieces. It's for a finisher, for somebody who's sanding and polishing the mount, it's almost always, pardon me, sorry, it's almost always easier to finish the pieces separately, and soldering them together is really easy, and you can get a better finished product that way. So I'm going to do this head separately. I'm also, as of right now, this head, this bottom thing is tapered. I'm just going to scale it. And I'm going to bring it down a little bit. I'm going to bring this down a little bit. So let me just hide these claws. Oops. Okay, so we got a nice solid connection between here. Now this looks a little goofy, not perfect, not beautiful. That's okay. It will work out a little bit later. So now that I know that I got at least one nice solid rail, so right here is where it's going to get welded, kind of against this claw and against this. I know that that'll be plenty of surface area, so I don't need to really worry about the junction between this top rail and this. If this was really thin and I didn't love how much surface area there was connecting those two, then I would add a little support like I had in yellow before. So this is better. I'm confident that when I weld this to this and do the head separately, it'll be enough. Don't have this too tight. I can guarantee you this is going to be a moissanite. I can guarantee you that the real moissanite is way fatter and way bigger and crappier of a belly than this perfectly cut gemstone in here. So when we do the gem cutter, we're going to hog out that rail quite a bit. Let's raise this stone up a little bit. And jaw bag. Okay, how's everything looking? I widen that out a little bit. Let's do the stamps very quickly. So what I do here, the reason why these are extended out, on a bigger ring, I can scale them up and down, and I leave them extra long so that it's just easy to scale. I know that no matter how big or how small or what, if it's a size 3 or a size 10, that they'll kind of be in the ballpark and I can scale them. I like to sync my stamps in about 0.4 to 0.45. And I'm going to 3D print these stamps into the model. So I just take the ring rail, offset it by 0.4, extrude it, and then Boolean intersection, and then I've got my stamps there. And those are looking just a hair too close to that fillet. I'm going to make them a little bit smaller. Oops. There we go. I want a little bit more room there. Like them fairly up high. Don't be putting them where you might size them down the road. Boolean difference. Actually, I'm going to save all the time. Oops. And Boolean difference. Okay. For whatever reason, my bottom piece disappeared. Okay, we'll bring it back. Okay, let's Boolean union that head together. That's already Boolean union together. Let's come here to gem cutter and let's get something with a nice sharp edge and a fairly big pilot hole. If so, this little guy's at an angle. If you want to tweak that angle a little bit so it's a little bit more centered, that won't affect the flatness of the seat. That's only the pilot hole. So that looks good. And what we want is we want a very small notch for the setter to be able to see it and cut her own seat from there. So that's looking good. And we'll do the same thing here. Now, here's where I'll taper this head a little bit. I'm going to look at the underside. I want this rail fairly thick. Let's Boolean on surface. Let's select this. Let's hide this stone so we can kind of see what it's doing here. Let's take this lower seat and let's try to remove a little bit more material. Bring this. So I don't want the lower rail too thin, but I want to clean up some material there. But it's more the upper rail that I want to be okay. I've got this funny little notch here. Oh, you know what? I know what I did. I accidentally left the rail from the Princess Cut and didn't modify it. Ooh, okay, let's Boolean difference. Is that going to be a big deal? Probably not. Probably not. I'm going to leave it. It's fine. It's fine. Let's... Okay, now I'm going to leave that first. So now it's the choice, do I Boolean this with this or this with this? I'm going to cut the purple because I want the setting head to be fully complete. So see how I have some notches, and then this will help align it. So when the guy who's finishing it, it'll fit in there like a key in a lock, really easy. Cut to ring rail these guys, Boolean union these. Please, Boolean union, yes. Cooperate, cooperate. Did object checker, they're fine. What's happening? Okay, probably planar. This is probably just a little bit too planar. Let's just take this and move it a microscopic pinch down. There we go. I don't know if you know that trick. Anytime you have two things that are perfectly planar, Boolean's just like, nope, too perfect. Not doing it. Not cool. Now, I got a couple options. I can prep this head separately. Oops, that's ugly. I can prep this head separately and 3D print it on its own. And you know what? I'm going to do that. Here's the reason why. With a Solidscape printer, you're printing them perfectly flat, and it all depends on the thickness. So if you're printing something this thick, it's 100 layers. If you're printing something from here to here, it's 150 layers. So you basically want to have each piece as thin as possible. I'm going to make sure to put a little support in here so that the stones can be set. It can be put on a ring holder, and it stays. Oops. That's a mess. Let's do this a different way. Curve Boolean is our friend. There we go. Lots of ways to do that. Pipe, whatever. I just wanted it to look just like this, so that's why I did it just like that. This is so the stone setter can put this on a ring holder. Ideally at the bottom. It can be up top. It won't really hurt anything either way. Really easy to remove. And away we go. Now this is so thin. I don't need to build any casting supports like this. This is going to cast just fine. Like this, I'm going to lay it on its side just because it saves me a couple steps. It'll throw it on that's the orientation that the 3D printer likes it. Okay, I just threw that in my ready to print file. And what I'm going to do here, and these are my casting supports. I like to build them right in because it saves time. Oh, you know what? You know what? I changed my mind. I changed my mind. I'm not happy with that. Okay, luckily. Okay, so this is my pre-booleaned version. I'm going to bring my stone back. I'm going to do an, do I have two? Yes, I do. Okay. I'm going to do an under bezel and da, da. Do I have any saved styles for this one? Okay, I'm going to delete this. Let's go back to this edit bezel. Get out of here. Okay, there we go. I do admit that I build things a little fast sometimes, and if I, in some situations, if I took my time to start, I wouldn't have to go back and redo stuff. But I don't know. At the same time, I have to redo so many things and make so many revisions and changes that, um, yeah, if you have a time machine, then obviously you know exactly what you want right from the get-go, and you can. It's like a real tutorial where you watch it, and every step of the tutorial is a step in the right direction because they know the end goal, and maybe they've prepped it or practiced it, or maybe the end goal isn't uh maybe the end goal is nothing specific. So they, as long as they just sort of follow the basic rules, then they're fine. So in my case, we are doing it all on the fly, all on the go, and I just want you to see what that looks like because I don't know, just watching somebody work like that and do their regular workflow is what I'm curious about. So I'm sharing it with you. I just want a little bit more contact with that head to the closet. Actually, better way to do that, instead of making the bezel, let's bend this in a little bit. That looks good. You will also notice that a lot of tutorials and a lot of people, they build all in the perspective viewport. I like to have all four because I'm always grabbing stuff. It allows me to grab things easier, um, having all four viewports available. Okay, so there's lots. I want kind of as much room as I can for the belly of that stone. So that's looking much better. I also don't want this, looking at it from the top, I don't want this to overhang. I don't want to see this. So it's sort of and I also want it as close to the stone as possible. So it's sort of a balancing act of making sure there's enough room so that your goldsmith and setter doesn't have to grind the heck out of it, but also making it look good and also making it as thick as possible so it's strong. So it's definitely a balancing act with that. So now that the under bezel, or sorry, the entire setting is good, I'm not going to use this cutter. I'm going to use this guy here. And I just want a small, uh, I just want a small divot so that the setter knows it helps keep the stone level. Um, okay. All right. So now, oh, I didn't want it that thin. Actually, no, that's okay. I'm gonna just screw it this way. This side's gonna get the side welded to it, so that is totally fine. Curve Boolean. Okay, I'm happy with that. Boolean union, lay on its side, and send. That's it. Not the smoothest job I've ever done, but that's okay. We're just here. We're just here for fun. We're just watching. We're just doing stuff on the fly. So thanks for watching. If you're here, say hey. Thanks, man. Bye.